Guys, how's it going? Doing some more dyno work today on a ZL1. Hopefully you can hear me over those fans. Been doing some pulls and got to keep the shop aired out for the rest of the guys here. So, 2000, let me back up a little bit here. 2013 ZL1, 5th gen Camaro. This one is kind of a more basic package. I shouldn't say basic, but a little bit of a lighter horsepower package than some of the other stuff we do. So I'll just kill these quick so we can. It's got a Roto-Fab on it. We put a Roto-Fab cold air, ported throttle body, ATI Balancer. Big thing with this is we only did a 5% overdriven lower pulley, stock upper pulley. So we're not increasing the boost a whole lot over stock, maybe a pound or two. Inch and 7/8 long tube headers, 160 degree thermostat. The big reason why we kept the boost down on this car, this particular package, is the stock injectors. We did not change the injectors out on it, so we're just gonna, and we didn't do anything with the stock intake fuel pump, so we're just gonna kind of max out the stock fuel system, and that's basically where we get to, you know, with headers, just a 5% lower with a stock upper. So otherwise, everything else on this car is stock. It's got, you know, it's an automatic. Just a little bit of work on the engine. So I did a baseline last week with it, and we got the work finished up today. So I got it up here on the dyno this evening, and this is where I'm at so far. So I'm going to kind of go through some of the tune changes I'll be making. I threw a base tune at it to get it close. I did about a 3/4 pull here. You can see I cut it off at 5,900. We'll take a look here at the baseline. That's how it came in. That's how the car came in completely stocked at 465, 456 torque. So this is where I'm at so far. Only about 18 and a half, 19 degrees of timing. I always start low with the timing, just for tuning purposes, and I can kind of work up the timing as I'm doing pulls and getting the air fuel straightened out and the likes. So, first data log here I took, you can see there's a little bit of burst knock on the bottom, and timing is definitely light, 16, 17, 18, 19, and then it dropped 18 and a half at the top. So, air fuel was low 0.8s for lambda, which is a little lean. I like to see right at 0.8 on the LSAs. This being a lower boost car, we can get away with a smidge leaner. Fuel is, you know, the richness of how rich we need to go on. And again, this is on pump gas because the stock fuel system is just 93 octane. So I did add some timing. So here's my main spark table. You can see the pink here is where I just added a bunch of timing. I added about 2 degrees, 3 degrees in some of the areas to kind of smooth the timing line out. So I'm gonna load this file in here, this calibration in, and then we're gonna do another pull here. And we'll see how we do on this one. Hopefully we pick up a little bit more power, and then we can keep going. I'm hoping to see mid 500s on this car. I might be a little optimistic right now, but we'll see. Extra timing added. Hit the fans here. So you definitely like that. So now we're getting to, I was hoping to see, I know it was really optimistic. I was hoping we were going to pick up 100 wheel, but I don't know if we will. We'll get close. That's a pretty good gain with just a couple degrees of timing there. These LSAs love timing. That's why they love E85 when you go that far with them. So you can see them starting to roll over here again on the smaller you know, just adding that little bit of a pulley to it with just headers with a stock cam, it's going to start to lay over above 6. But remember that blue run, that was the limiter. That 6200, that's the stock limiter. For whatever reason, GM on these LSAs really cut the RPM down on them. You know, when you're just driving around in normal drive mode, they shift to like 5,900. In sport mode, they shift to like 6. So I bump everything up quite a bit. We've proven these out with stock valve train to over 6,500. I'll use just as a limiter at 66, 67, somewhere in there. Have them shift over 6, you know, 62.3, something like that. Have them shift out here. So we can take a look at the data log, and I might just add a smidge more timing to it. It looks like it's liking the timing up top. So now you can see we are in the low 20s for timing. So I did add a little more fuel, so you can see my lambda at the bottom there, the yellow. See, I'm right about 0.8, 0.79, 0.8, 0.81. It's a smidge lean on top. I might add a little bit more fuel right here, just like a percent. But you can see and this is what I was talking about with the stock injectors. 17 milliseconds is pretty far up there as far as duty cycle. That's, you know, 20 milliseconds at 6,000 RPM is 100%. If you had 20 milliseconds of pulse width at 6,000 RPM, they'd be 100% duty cycle. So 17, you know, we're up there. We're in the 80s. So for pulse width, for duty cycle, so that's pretty much maxed out. So this is where we get with that 5% ring on the bottom, the 5% lower pulley with that ATI headers and that cold air. We can max out the stock injectors and still make a decent chunk of power over stock. So if you get one of these ZL1s, you don't have to do right away. You don't have to do the super small up to 255 or 238 upper with a big lower ring and big injectors. I mean, I know you make, you know, big power with these stock blowers, but that's not always for everybody. Some guys just like cruising these things around. They're not after every last bit of horsepower. So this is still a nice chunk of power over stock. But anyway, I'm gonna add a little bit more timing. I don't think it's gonna take more timing in the mid-range, honestly. 21, that's about all they take in the mid-range, even at this lower boost level. So I'll probably add a little bit more. Just looking at the graph here, I'll probably add a little bit more above 5,000 RPM. Maybe another degree, and I'm going to give it another percent rich. So everything else I got set up in all the other spark tables, but, you know, basically you take a look at this, take a look at my air mass. This is kind of a quick and dirty on how I add timing to these things. You know, this is why I data log all this stuff, so you can take a look. So you can see our air mass is 1.36. So I'll go back to my timing table. I always scale my timing table axes out. I don't like ragging on other guys, but sometimes I open up other people's tunes and on big power stuff, and they got these especially the air mass axis, the y-axis here, they'll have it at the stock 1.36. And when the car is going out to like 1.8 or 1.9, so it just hits that top row, the bottom row here, I should say the bottom row, and whatever that timing is what it's running at, you know, whatever air mass you go beyond that axis point. I always scale these out to what the car is going to do, so I kind of figured on this car we'd be over that stock. We're about right at the stock limit, but if this guy comes back and wants to do injectors and an upper pulley or something, then I'm already there. You know, I already got it. So we're at 1.36. I'm going to add, and I said I was going to add some timing above 55,000, so I'm going to start at 52. I'm going to go here. I'm going to add a degree. I'm going to add a half degree before that. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to leave it. I'm going to leave it just like that. I always just, for now, when I'm doing my dyno tunes on the dyno, I always just copy and paste to the low octane. On my final write and my final calibration, I will populate the low octane table with lower timing values and the higher load ranges, just in case you get a bad tank of fuel or something. I'll pull, 4 degrees of timing out of the low octane table in case you get a crappy tank of gas, or maybe the guy forgets to put 93 in it, puts an 89 or 87 in it because he's used to driving his other car or something, and just some protection against, against something like that happening. So then I'm gonna go to airflow. So now when I'm adding fuel on this particular car, now this isn't for every single car I tune, but this is a blended tune with mass airflow and map. So the mass airflow sensor is the main component that the ECU is using for fueling. So I want to add some fuel here where you can see it starts to tail lean. So there I'm good. Right about 0.81. You always got to back it up a little bit from where my scanner is because there's a little bit of a delay from the O2 sensor. So probably above like 9,300, I'm going to add 1% on my mass airflow frequency. So go to my MAF table, go to the 9,300 hertz cell, highlight from there up. 1.01, which is 1%, multiply. I always go back in every time I make a change to my MAF curve to make sure. I really always like to see this smooth. If this starts to get all jagged, there's something else wrong in the tuning or injector data or something like that. The mass airflow sensor, pretty much 99% of the time on LS, on especially Gen 4 LS stuff like this, should always have a nice smooth curve. If it gets to the point where it's getting all, you got stuff going on like that, there's something else going on with your data somewhere else in your tune, or you got a mechanical issue going on in the engine where you got a vacuum leak or a header leak or something like that. So you always want to see these smooth. So every time I make a change to this, when I'm adding fuel or taking fuel out of my MAF curve, I always go back in and look at the graph to make sure that it's not all jagged and make sure I'm not chasing something that I shouldn't be. Just some of the stuff I do when I'm tuning these cars. So I save that, click the key on. Sometimes I'll save as, and if I'm doing like rewrite after rewrite after rewrite, I'll save as and I'll save multiple files. This car, I just have a couple files saved because I've done so many of these. I know exactly where I need to be, so I don't need to make 10, 15 changes to this car. If I was making that many changes, I'd start saving multiple files so I could go back easily on stuff that I made changes to. Maybe I got an undesirable result on a tune change, and I want to just go back to the other tune quick. And I can do that quickly when I save multiple files. But on this car, because I'm making small changes, I won't save it as a new file. So I'm not going to write the transmission, so I'm just going to write the ECU, and we go right, and then we wait. So I'm going to go set the camera back down. I'm going to turn those fans back on. We're going to do another pull here, and we'll see where we end up. We'll see where that extra little bit of timing up in the top end gets us. Hopefully we get maybe another 10 or so. We get close to that 550 mark.
All right, guys. Tune change is made. Latch that in.
Let's do another pull here on board and see how we did. That little bit extra timing, add some fuel, got the logger going. Bring up my display here so I can see what gear engines, these 13s. I can scroll through all the Christmas tree of stuff that happens when you run these on the dyno. You get all the ABS and stability and everything comes on. It gets a little angry, but so this car's staying pretty warm here. 185 on the coolant temp. Like we, if anything, lost some. So the extra timing didn't do anything. And that's where we know that we're there for timing. So my air fuel looks good. Now you can see right where I added that little bit, that extra degree, you can see the knock sensor just picked up a tiny little 0.2. We're there. So you take that and you take the gain, or the lack of a gain, I mean, we'll go look at the graphs, they look like they pretty much overlay each other. And I did add a little fuel. I do run these LSAs rich, so when you add a little bit of fuel, that extra timing may have gave me pretty much nothing, but me adding that little bit of fuel just to be safe is probably why I lost that 4 horsepower. But you can see it's definitely richer now. So, and you can see here too, the way the boost has that tail up at the end, where it like gains like a whole pound of boost or two. That's just, you just know you're there, where the motor's just backing up on boost. So I think this looks good. I'm gonna leave it. I might just pull like a ½ degree back out since we didn't gain anything. Again, for street cars, guys are driving around the street in all various conditions of weather and gasoline, whatever. You gotta be really conservative with this stuff. So data log looks really good. So I'm super happy with that. Let's go look at the graphs. Let me get those fans shut off. Let me get outside here. They get loud. Since we're not gonna need them anymore. Alright, so you can see it, and we'll bring up just those last 2 pulls. So I'll kill all this other stuff. Yeah, so you can see they pretty much, obviously down here everything was the same, but you can see that extra fuel I added is probably the degree of timing didn't do anything. The little bit of extra fuel I added brought the power down just a little bit, but I'd rather have it more towards that rich, that safe zone, and be down 4-wheel than running it lean on the ragged edge of, potentially knocking, especially, in northern Illinois here and in the Midwest this time of year in the fall. Some guys are still driving their cars when it's 45, 50 degrees out. We get these nice sunny days, but it's 45, 50 degrees out, and some of the guys are still enjoying their cars. In the shop here, you can look at the weather station. Oops, my bad. Weather station's reading 68 in the shop, so it's kind of a nominal temperature. You take this car out now when it's 50 degrees outside, and we're gonna pick up a little bit boost, and obviously the timing will drop a little bit if my air mass goes up, but you gotta do this stuff safe, and you gotta think of all conditions, especially stuff like this, again, where they're drivers, they're street cars, they're not raced at a track in more controlled conditions. They will see all sorts of different scenarios. So that's the type of stuff you got to think about when we're tuning street cars. So, and cars that are nothing but street cars. So there you have it. That's going to be the final. So I'm not going to cheat it, and I'm going to call that last run because of that extra fuel I added. That's where it's going to be, 530. And sometimes that's the way it is. You make a little bit more power with, maybe you're tickling the knock sensors, or you make a little bit more power when something's a little leaner, but it's not necessarily on the safe side of something. And you can't count that as that's how the car's leaving here. So I totally could have said this thing made 534, but the way the tune is set, and I'm actually gonna pull that little bit of timing back out of it because it didn't do anything. This is where it's gonna be. So this is where we are, and I like being honest about this stuff. So there's our delta. That's our baseline. We did that last week when customer dropped this vehicle off, and this is the one you just saw. We just did on board. So that's a pretty nice gain, 65 wheel, and 50 pound-feet. So we really didn't pick up a whole ton of boost, maybe almost, on the top end here, we did pick up a couple pounds of boost with that pulley, and turning obviously turning off the torque management and the supercharger torque management and all sorts of torque managements on these LSAs where we can shut off, make the car way more responsive, and just make it kind of, basically make it whatever the supercharger can make for boost, that's what the engine's getting. Instead of, there's a bypass solenoid on these things that will regulate the boost and hold boost back in colder weather and stuff if the boost tries to creep up too high, and we shut all that off. Obviously we pulley it, and we want to see the most boost, the most the supercharger will put out for the given pulley ratio. So yeah, that's maxing out a stock fuel system on a ZL1, I'll call it. Basically is what this package is. Stock injectors, stock fuel pump, no booster pump, nothing like that, 93 octane. That's about as far as you can take that stuff. So without any auxiliary, water meth or methanol injection or any other auxiliary fuel source. So I'll probably set this thing up. You can see it's pretty flat up here. I'll probably set this up to shift at 60, right about. I have the limiter in. You saw it hit the limiter there. Limiter's at 66. I don't like stock valve springs. I don't like taking them much past that. The bottom ends are good for way more than that, but the stock valve springs aren't the most robust at higher RPM. So I don't want to push stuff unless we know we're upgrading. So yeah, that's a Roto-Fab. That's a 5% lower pulley, stock upper, 1 7/8 headers, hooked to a stock, and I didn't mention that before, this is hooked to just a stock exhaust, stock ZL1 dual mode exhaust, thermostat, ported throttle body, and that pretty much covers it. The rest of this stuff is stock blower, stock engine, stock trans, stock fuel system. Again, that's the main thing on this is stock injectors and stock pump. So that'll be a wrap for this one. Thanks for watching. Feel free to comment on these videos I make on the dyno about any stuff you guys want to see. If you like what you see, if you don't like what you see, whatever. Can't hurt my feelings, I don't care. Been around doing this stuff for a long time. So thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.